Tell us about yourself, Scott.
I am an English language degree student, which I think defines everything I'm interested in. I love words, I love phonetics, I love sociolinguistics, I love what that could tell me about the world and how it shapes the worldview of everything around us. So that's why I've been involved in Communicate, that's why I've been involved in all types of writing, that's what I think I'm good at, potentially perhaps all I'm good at. I love music, I love creative arts, I love performance, I think it's healthy, which is why actually what drew me to the QM in the first place. To me it was a music union, which is why I went there. My first gig in Glasgow was, one of the first gigs in Glasgow was in the QMU about 10 years ago, and ever since then I wanted to go straight there.
You strive to create a community and inter-committee cooperation. Do you not fear that that could increase cliquiness that has been brought up as a problem in the past?
It's interesting to me that cliquiness is a problem with the QMU when that was thrown around a lot 4 or 5 years ago. That claim was the same as it is today, yet it was still more popular and more populated than it is now. I wonder how big an issue cliquiness is in terms of labelling. So if you think of cliquiness as a bad thing, or a community as you're welcome here, you can be a part of the clique if you want to be. It depends how you see it. If you're on the inside of a clique, it's not the same thing as being on the outside and looking in. I think if you label it as a clique, that's a bad thing. If you label it as a community that everyone is welcome into, I say the same thing at Communicate meetings, where if you've been 2 weeks in a row, you're part of the gang, you know the inside jokes. I think the same thing can apply building wide. Clique is one way of putting it, I think community is better.
You place a lot of emphasis on cultivating a community. Can you give a solid example of a policy or action you would implement to cultivate a community?
I think it comes from the top down. I think it's interesting when a board meeting every second Monday for the Board of Management ends and people feel kind of deflated at the end of it. That's very interesting to me, that people who volunteer, give up their time and should feel most passionate about the union actually leave feeling kind of deflated about the whole thing. If they're not excited, why should anyone else be excited? If the folk at the top can't even spread the cheer outside of the meetings that they're all working together in, why should anyone else care? The policy isn't so much we're going to change this thing, it's we need to work together better, we need to get along better and cooperate more, we need to go to each other's committees, we need to go to each other's meetings and help out in a way that we're not doing just now. It feels like we're working against each other as opposed to with each other.
You talk about the QMU's personality. Could you explain what you think this is right now and what you would like it to be?
A line I took out of my manifesto because it was getting too big was that I would rather be the Sex Pistols than Coldplay. I feel like it's become a bit beige. There's not a lot of personality there. It's not the thing that drove me to the union. I believe in the music aspect of it, so when you come here for the first time and people say Nirvana played there, you're like, that's pretty cool, but also who's played there recently? To me, there's been a lot of good bands that played there recently. There's been a lot of metal bands I absolutely love. We had Charlie XCX last year. It's still good, and these people are on the way up. Nirvana weren't world conquerors when they played the QMU, so we should celebrate the fact that music keeps coming through and we are another stepping stone on the way to a grander career for those people. In terms of activism, to me, when I got here, it was sort of around about the time of a few scandals over at the GUU, and the QM sort of distanced themselves from that attitude and said this is what we believe in. I'm not sure that's been out there this year. It's fair play to the GUU for doing a lot better job and like really looking after themselves this year, but the QMU doesn't stop believing in things because they don't have to respond to things. We should be out there more often saying this is what we believe in, this is what we support, and we welcome these committees around campus. All the societies should be coming to the QMU as a safe space as well, to operate out of, to have a safe haven on campus that we think, or I think personally, is kind of where that spirit should belong on campus. I think the QMU should fight for students, fight for what students believe in, and it's strange to me that's not what it is already.
Finally, would it be fair to say that you're not an avid club goer? And if that is the case, do you believe you are the right person to be running a social union with alcohol being its main source of income?
I don't think the president has to be someone who drinks every week to get the spirit of the place. I like events management. I've certainly thrown events before that have been well attended and successful. When I take people to the pub after Communicate and take like 40 folk down the road with me, they don't say I'm not going with him, he doesn't drink. I still say, let's go have fun together, guys. I can get high on an iron brew and you can have a whiskey or something. I believe that also, when it comes to setting events and setting the agenda, that's not necessarily the president's job. We have an events manager, an events committee, an events convener who should be working together and who should know much better than the president does. There's a reason why that committee exists. The president should work with them to promote something that is really successful campus-wide and wants people to come in from the whole campus. But it's not necessarily my job to say, come have a pint with me. It's my job to say the QM is the best place for you to be and have fun, and working alongside the events people. Together we'll make that happen, regardless of whether or not I will have some wine at the event or not.
What would you be interested in specifically implementing in the union, potential new event or something?
A new event's interesting. I think I read Jack's manifesto recently. He said the Friday nights kind of free to do something. I don't believe in club nights or think way to go just now. I think the Hive has still got a fresh hype out of it. I don't think the way that club nights have been seen in the QMU over the last few years have went very well. The one off Cheesy Pop was really good, despite itself, it seems. But I'm not sure that's what we want. I think when it comes down to there was chat of like activist mixers at one point for Freshers Week and Refreshers Week, which went really well. I wonder if we could bring them together to throw big events. Things like Secret Policeman's Ball go really well every year. I don't see why we couldn't promote other societies to do things like that and promote themselves and give them a space to do that. Whether it's a Friday or any other night. Kudos is a good space for hosting things like that. Potentially even better for things like that than club nights. I think if you can get people in the building and enjoy those events, they get a familiarity with the building, and that keeps them coming back. It makes them think this place is where our society is welcome, I'm welcome, and that's with or without the club aspect. I think as long as you get a social, positive and encouraging aspect, it'll be okay.
Do you think the activism side and events such as smaller language cafes are enough to sustain the union financially?
Not necessarily on their own. I think the problem we've seen is that some people apply to the external factor of the university to give the QM more funding. I think that puts off a problem as opposed to dealing with it. I think you need people in the building, which we don't have currently. You can put off the fact that the money is depleting, but if you can't get the QM to sustain itself, then that doesn't really matter. If you can get folk in the building first, whether that's the language cafes, activist mixers, anything else, then you have people buying food in Scran Food Factory, you have 3 bars, hopefully it spreads out. The more people come along, the more people invest in the QMU. It's interesting to me that the thing that exists, if you're a freshers helper, you get a Pally Pass, which gets you into the events for the rest of the year pretty much. Which is strange that the 100 most devoted people to the QMU then don't pay to get in. If you can't encourage people who want to help out the most to pay, then why should anyone else? I don't think we should take students' money off students like by grabbing it and raising prices and stuff, but it should be welcoming to the point where you want to come along and say, this is a cheap pint, why don't we spend it here? Why should we go here over anywhere else? Because it is so much cheaper, it's a good night out, but without folk in the building, that doesn't really mean anything.